Hello there, my name is Annette with Sunbeam Fabric Art and welcome to my channel. I have a batch of scraps here that are left over from the Jelly Roll pinwheel quilt that I made not too long ago. Now I have a special fondness for crazy quilts. I used to be a cross stitcher. On a cross stitch hop one year, I bought a book called Crazy Quilts. And it had the most beautiful heirloom type crazy quilts with stitching and instructions on how to make those quilts. There were even some patterns in the back of the book. Unfortunately, I had never made a quilt before. I did not have any idea how to use these patterns or use these templates. No clue at all. I wanted to make a crazy quilt for my daughter using both her clothes and my clothes together. And that is when I saw my very first Missouri Star video. I saw Jenny Doan making a crazy quilt in the easiest way possible, and I was able to finish that quilt. Now I've got to say the quilting on my very first quilt was not great. I redid it about 4 years after that and sent it back to my daughter. Anyway, back to these scraps. There are a lot of scraps here with the 45-degree angle cut, and I cut a lot of them wrong. I don't know if you saw the video. If you didn't, watch it and avoid my mistake. But I ended up with a lot of cuts that are wrong here. So these are going to be perfect to make some crazy quilt blocks because they're coming in all different sizes from short to longer. I love this combination of colors. I love the greens and the blues. To start my crazy quilt blocks, I decided to go with a contrasting color, something different from my stash, and I chose this really pretty yellow print. I've got a little bit of it, just enough to cut out some 5-sided shapes. I didn't feel like it was necessary to press this before I started working on my blocks, but I did fold it over so the thickness is 4 thick, and I'm cutting just a square that is about the size I want my center of my crazy quilt block to be. And then I'm taking these squares and cutting them down into 5-sided shapes. That first set of 4 I cut out was a little wonky, but this one is much better and more the look that I'm going for. And of course, our scraps never end. No matter what we do, we are going to create scraps. These are going to go into a little bag along with any other leftovers from the blues and the greens, and we will definitely tuck those away for another project someday. With these all sorted out by size to make it easier, I'm ready to sit down at the sewing machine and start chain piecing 12 crazy quilt blocks. I'm grabbing a blue piece that's a little bit on the short side, and I'm putting that right sides together with a shorter side of this 5-sided shape and stitching those right sides together. And then I'm just going to go through and chain piece all 12. One once I got to the last piece, I went ahead and broke my chain. And you can see I've got my iron set up and my pressing mat right there. I'm going to want to press these pieces after every round. As I worked with adding these smaller pieces with the angles, I did have to kind of be careful on which way that angle was headed. For example, that piece I'm pressing right now, I'm going to lose some of that blue because it doesn't come down to the same angle as the line that I'm going to be adding next. For the next round, I'm adding a lighter green shade for all 12. With those angle pieces, I tried to lay them next to the piece that I was going to be adding onto. That way I could kind of see if it was going to work for the block. As we get into these subsequent rounds, while I break the chain, I'm also trimming off that excess bulk away from the seam. The next round, I chose a dark green fabric for the 12 blocks. The next round I chose was a light blue fabric. It was actually a children's print. It has little animals on it. After that, I chose a dark teal fabric for the next round. I tried to alternate light, dark, blue, and green as much as possible. Towards the end, when these blocks were getting up to the size that I wanted them to be, I did have to reach into my stash, and some of the fabrics I used for that pinwheel quilt came from my stash of trimmed off backing from quilts that I had cut into 2.5-inch strips. At first I was using my ruler to keep track of what size my blocks were getting to be. I kind of wanted them to be 11-inch blocks. Well, my pressing mat is just a little bit bigger than that, so I started using my pressing mat to show me where I needed to add additional fabrics. Part of the charm of Crazy Quilt blocks for me is that no two are ever alike, unless you pre-measure everything and follow a plan. But I really like this way of just going with the flow and seeing what happens. And then when it gets to the right size, we can trim those back to square and get that center block, that center yellow for me, kind of get it in the center or maybe off to one side or the other side so they don't all look alike. I rounded up all the little scraps from this part of the process and got those in the bag. Then I started trimming my blocks to 11 inches, and you'll see on the right hand side there I'm creating another stack of scraps. Those will also get added to my little plastic bag of scraps and put into the scrap bin. Now, I don't like to have too many scraps in my bin that have already been joined to something else, so you can see I'm cutting away bigger chunks on seam lines so that I can save the scrap but not have to have a seam line already made for me. Now I want to give you a nice long look at the 12 quilt blocks. As you can see, I have not finished them, and that is because I'm still debating. Do I want to have sashing? Do I want to not have sashing? If I do have sashing, what color? And also, I love Crazy Quilts, and I really want to do justice to this. I want to make it the best quilt it can be, and I'm going to think about that for a while and how I'm going to finish that, and I'll make sure and update you when that happens. In the meantime, I really do thank you for joining me. I appreciate your support of my channel, and I love making this content for you. I hope to see you back again real soon.